What kind of commitments do you make as a teenager?
No commitments, too young.
I make commitments to school, to my family, to my friends.
Getting good grades.
I try to do commitments towards school and my talents and stuff like that, and hobbies and stuff.
Commitments. School, if they're good, and if they're bad, they make commitments to do whatever they're going to do that's bad.
I try and commit to do good in school, not to let anybody, try to persuade me to do everything. I'm trying to be a leader instead of, a follower. That way nobody can influence me to do things that will hurt me in my future.
I don't drink or anything. I don't do that, I guess. I guess I try to be good. I try to get into a good college, so I hang out with the good people and I do my schoolwork and stuff.
I do sports and I guess going to school on time and babysitting and jobs and stuff.
Well, you make a commitment to school and your friends and maybe your boyfriend or a girlfriend and your parents. You make a commitment to be good daughters or sons to them.
To sports and school things and things with the family.
My schoolwork, that's really a priority for me, and keeping my friends and my future.
Do your schoolwork.
My friends and my family and my boyfriend.
It's sports and stuff, I guess, family things. It all depends, there's a lot.
It depends sometimes, relationships and grades and stuff.
To your parents in school?
To not do drugs.
To sports and school and getting my homework done and stuff like that.
I think you make a lot of commitments to yourself as a person. You try and have a clear head about what your future is, and you try and make a commitment to your family, how you feel about school, and how you feel about your own things that you have to get done, like for clubs or anything like that. And a lot of people, I think you have a lot of stress, basically trying to keep those commitments up.
A commitment is a pledge or a promise.
It comes from the Latin word committere, which means to bring together.
When we make commitments, we are saying that we'll bring ourselves to the task.
We are saying that something is a priority in our lives and that we'll stick to it, no matter what happens.
What kinds of commitments do you make?
And how good are you at keeping them?
That's what we'll be talking about today. Hi everyone, I'm Beth.
And I'm Jack.
And this is Real Faith TV.
At the start of our program, we met some teens who told us what kind of commitments they make in their lives.
We'll also talk with our studio guests about the commitments in their lives.
But first, let's meet our spotlight guest, Katie, who will tell us about the commitment she makes and how good she is at sticking to them.
Well, my commitment's for school. I'm involved in the National Honor Society, the German club. I'm drum major of the marching band, wind ensemble. I have to keep my grades up. I have to keep my grades over an 85, B-. So I have all that, and then I'm a cantor at church. I'm very involved in my youth group. Commitments to all my friends, commitments to my family, my commitments to God, my flute lessons, getting places on time, just, planning retreats. And I also have a commitment to care about the people that I meet. I work at a day camp, so I chase 4- and 5-year-olds around all the time. I have a commitment to make sure that all the parents that are sending their kids to camp, that their kids are safe and that their kids are having a good time, and that their kids are actually building relationships with the other children there. And it's a big part it shows about who I am, that I can care for other people's children and still let them have fun. Same thing with babysitting, It's responsibility. Yeah. Commitments to my family include being at dinner every night. When we have dinner, we always have dinner as a family, unless some of us are away. And holidays and stuff, I have a commitment to my parents to let them know where I am all the time, who I'm with, when I'll be home. You know how it goes, new teenagers. Some of the commitments to my friends, they include, always being there for them, always having an open ear and open arms for them if they need me. We always try to hang out a lot and try to have fun. There's a commitment I make to God to, stay faithful, and just commitment in general, just to keep searching for a relationship with Jesus and stuff to become closer. I think it is important for people my age to honor their commitments because as you grow up, you're learning how to interact with people, and if other people can't trust you, then they might not come to you next time if they need a favor. I really don't think there are any that stand out in my mind that I've totally backed out on, because my mom taught me when I was younger that when you make commitments, you have to keep them. So don't make any commitments that you can't keep. Kind of like don't make promises you can't keep.
I have a lot of the same commitments Katie has, and I think that I'm a lot like her in that I really don't like to back out on my commitments.
I have a lot of the same commitments too. I think most teenagers have pretty similar commitments: your family, your faith, school, sports, your friends. Let's find out what kinds of commitments our studio guests make.
Let's meet them first. They are Powell, Ross, Katie, Meredith, Kristen, and Anthony.
So, what kinds of commitments do you guys make?
I think, you know, same as kids on the street and Katie, commitment to friends, family. I just graduated high school, so, you know, I'm gonna start making commitments to college now. And, you know, I try to do well in my schoolwork, you know, I have to keep my grades up, otherwise my parents will get on me. Making plans with friends, or, you know, if I tell them I'm gonna do something for them, you know, I try not to break that. I try to always, you know, stick with my plans. And same with my family. If, you know, if they need something or if I need something from them, you know, we're committed to each other and to helping each other.
I think most of my commitments have to do with school, like either sports or academics or school activities like clubs and everything. And I think that's going to stay the same till like college.
I try to make commitments that are important to me, just because I feel that if you're doing something you like, you'll definitely be able to keep doing that and stay committed to that thing.
I know for me, there are so many things I'm committed to between dance classes, voice lessons, I teach Sunday school, I cantor, I'm in the school musicals, my family, my friends, my faith in God. Sometimes it can be overwhelming, but I think what you said is a really good point. If it's something that you really love and is really important to you, then you're going to be able to follow through with those commitments.
Yeah, because commitment is really just a promise. And if you have a commitment to something, you're saying, I promise that I'll do this.
Yeah, like for me, I need to work on my commitments because I make a lot of commitments and then I don't keep them. Like I forget or I take 2 commitments at the same time, and you know, so I got to work on that.
Well, it's good though that you realize that it's something you need to work on and you're not going to just keep pulling things off. At least you know that about yourself.
I'm trying.
Keep on trying.
As teenagers, we do make a lot of commitments, but how good are we at keeping them?
How good is your word?
Do you let your yes mean yes and your no mean no?
It's easy to tell people what they want to hear.
But do you keep your commitments?
That's what we asked our teens on the street.
Let's check it out.
Do you think that most teens keep the commitments that they make?
Most teens do, but some teens, like, if they can't keep it up, they know they're just going to fail, so they just back out of it.
The stuff that they like to do, I think that's what they commit to.
Most of the time they think it's something else to do, and then they drop out of their commitments, their previous commitments.
How many times have you backed out of a commitment?
I'd say about 100. Maybe about a couple times, like maybe if I wasn't serious about the commitment.
Have you ever backed out on a commitment?
Yeah. Like relationships. All of them. Quite a few.
A lot. Like if I commit myself to like study for a test and I'm tired, I don't. So most of my commitments I do back out of, unless it's like I gotta go to the store to pick up smokes or something.
You choose to like sign up for a sport, but then you like decide to stop and not want to do it or change your mind.
I haven't kept count, but I was supposed to babysit this summer and I never called the lady back.
I was taking like piano lessons, and then I backed out of that because I didn't like to do it anymore, and I found something I just take a car now.
I can't recall anything that I backed out of a commitment like that.
Not that many. I'm a pretty committed kid.
I never back out of commitments.
When I backed out of commitment, some of my friends asked me to keep a secret for them, and I told them I would, but I knew it wasn't good. It was for their own good, so I told somebody about it.
I don't know. I don't do commitments. It's not my thing.
That I backed out of? Keeping good grades. I run a club called Earth Watchers in my school,
and we're supposed to do beach cleanup, but due to I just been so busy, I never got around to helping with the club, and I had a club too, and I was supposed to be an officer in it, and I had to drop out because I had too much things going on in my life, and I felt really bad because I made a commitment to the whole club, and I had to drop out of it. It was just for personal reasons.
You know, it was good to hear and see from their facial expressions that some of the teens who said they do back out of their commitments at least feel bad about it and know that it's not necessarily the right decision to make. So, when we make a commitment to another person, that person entrusts us with the care of something or someone.
They rely upon us to keep our word and do what we have promised to do.
So, do you guys think that teenagers in general are known to keep their commitments?
No, definitely not.
I think that's a stereotype. I mean, I think that there are a lot of kids nowadays that actually do have commitments and they hold to them. Because, I mean, I guess it depends on how mature you are and if you really take responsibility. But I'd say that it might be like half and half. Like, some kids just, they don't want to commit to things, so they don't. And other kids, I think, really do.
I think if you go.
No.
No. You. I think if you ask the average adult, do teenagers keep their commitments? They'd say no. I just think that's the way they think.
Trying to get at.
Maybe adults think that there are some implied commitments, and we just don't know about them. That's my theory.
Mm-hmm.
But I think most teenagers are the happy medium commitment-wise. But then there are some that are overcommitted and they forget to be committed to themselves and to their own health and to their own well-being. Those are the kids who have 10 minutes for lunch because they got to get to their their violin lesson, and then after that at 2:30 they got to pick up Johnny and bring over Fluffy to the vet and all that stuff. So there's the kids who have slacking off, but there's really not as much of them. But there's lots of kids who they know what they're doing. They're very responsible.
I think it's more, if you want to keep your commitment, chances are you'll be able to. I think if you truly want to do something and you're committed to doing it, then there is no reason for you to not, keep your commitment to it. You'll, keep going and go through with it. But I think if you're only in it, 50% and half-hearted, then your desire's not there. So you're not going to be committed to keep your commitment. That makes sense.
So how are you?
Makes sense.
How are you guys at keeping your commitments? Are you reliable?
I'd like to think I am.
Everybody would.
I don't know. I think, I think I do an okay job at keeping my commitments.
Yeah, I'll keep my commitments to my friends. Like if someone asks me for a favor, I'll keep my commitments to them. But sometimes I won't keep commitments to myself. Like if for school, if I have to do this assignment right now and I know I have time to do it, I might get sidetracked with something else and say, oh, I'll just do it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then you end up not doing it. I do that all the time.
Whoever's commitments are said first, like whether it's a friend or parents, usually that comes first for me. Even if I'd promised myself I would do something else beforehand, like all of a sudden mine takes a backseat, even though usually mine is like, oh, get that essay done by Thursday. So
I think that might be one of the reasons why a lot of adults think that teenagers aren't good at making commitments, because we put commitments first that they might not view as what we should have first. I mean, obviously our parents want our family and our grades and stuff like that to be the commitments that are number one to us, but I think for a lot of teens, they find other commitments more important, like their friends or, just other things. And it doesn't mean that we're not committed, it just means that maybe we're not committed to the things that people expect us to be.
Yeah, I think also that parents and adults, they can be really critical sometimes. Like they'll overlook all the commitments we're doing that are good, and then they'll just nitpick and they'll only look at the ones, they'll only see us giving up something. They won't look at us committing to something and doing it. They'll notice that, but they won't say too much about it. They'll only notice that we're not doing something else.
Yeah.
For a long time I was afraid to quit color guard because I was having horrible back pain. And when I finally did, like a week and a half later, I ended up having to have surgery on my back. So.
Oh wow. So sometimes you do have to back out of a commitment.
Yeah.
So what about people keeping commitments to you?
Can you think of a time when someone let you down by following through on a commitment?
In our next segment, Katie talks more about commitments in her life and how she feels when someone lets her down.
Sometimes people make commitments, just for example, like in a youth group, when it's their turn to plan the meeting and they like forget about it or they don't show up to the meeting. So that one's always a fun one. So I don't know, you feel let down because you were excited to hear what they had to say about the topic that they had, and then they didn't show up for the meeting at all, and it totally just kind of bums you out. It's very hard to balance the commitments you make to your friends and the commitments you make to your parents and the commitments you make in school, because in order to live like a balanced lifestyle, you have to be able to pull from all of them to help them like create you. But if you get too involved in one thing, you can't always have time for the other. So it is hard. It does feel good to keep your commitments because it feels like once you keep your commitment that you can do anything, you know. Then I end up overbooking myself, and that's no fun. But it does feel good to keep commitments. In the end, it's really worth it.
Sean Covey writes about keeping commitments you make to yourself in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens.
He reflects on what happens when a friend promises to do something and then doesn't do it.
You stop trusting that friend to do what he says he will do.
The same thing can happen when you consistently break promises to yourself.
After a while, you stop believing in yourself.
He offers the advice that keeping big commitments to yourself is easier if you make small ones you know you can keep. Then go bigger, to the more difficult promises.
So has there ever been a time in your lives when someone has let you down or not followed through on a commitment?
Yeah, I had this one time where I had this friend, and I think friendship is a commitment. And I was going through a rough time in my life, and you know, instead of her sticking out with me and helping me out, she just kind of laughed, like, bye.
Ouch.
So I think, you know,
Sometimes it's at the hardest times in our life when we learn who our true friends are.
if you have a friend that sticks by you, you know they're good.
Yeah, I really don't like it when people if they say, okay, I'll go to the store with you tomorrow. My friend did that once, and she called me 10 minutes before we were supposed to go. She's like, I can't go, something else came up. And I hate that because if I was to do that, I know she would get really mad at me. And I just let it go, and I think that's really not cool.
I remember one time, I play guitar, my brother plays drums, and one of the first bands we were in, we played at the Stone Pony a couple of times, and this one time we were playing there, this band was the one that had, we had a whole horn section in it and everything, so we were there and we were due to go on in 20 minutes, so one of our horn players didn't show up, and I'll never forget this. She calls me and I get a call and she says, hey, this is so-and-so. And I was like, oh, okay, well, where are you? She says, I can't come. And I just look at the phone. I'm like, why can't you come? She says, because I don't want to be in the band anymore. And
right before a performance?
Right performance,
I mean, that is not cool.
No, it's not, and I never forgot it.
I know this story is going to sound really cliche probably, but I know this year for the senior prom, my 2 best friends and I were supposed to go in a limo together with some other friends of ours. And last minute, my 2 best friends found another limo. They decided they wanted to go in more than the one we were already in. And they left our limo. And that may sound really tacky and oh, no big deal. But I mean, it upped everybody's prices for the limo cost. And if we either had to find new people to go in our limo to bring the price back down or put out more money, which was a difficult thing. And I mean, at the time I was really mad at them and but sometimes you just have to talk to people about it and work through it because, I mean, that's definitely what we did and they're still 2 of my best friends. It's just wasn't very happy with them at that point.
Yeah. What about the other side of the coin? How does it feel when someone keeps their commitment to you?
Or how do you feel when you keep a commitment?
Commitments are a very important part of relationships. In any kind of a relationship, both people make a commitment to be attentive to one another.
To treat one another with love and respect.
Let's go back to our interview with Katie and find out how keeping commitments has strengthened her relationships.
She will also tell us what she considers to be her most important commitment.
Keeping commitments does strengthen relationships. Keeping commitments to my friends is a big part of making friends, I think. If you tell one of your friends that you're going to do something for them and you don't do it, then you're letting them down. And they feel like they can trust you if you keep commitments. and they feel like, they can tell you things and have fun with you, and they know that it's going to be okay because you made a commitment to be their friend and you're not going to back out on them. When I keep commitments to my family, that also, it brings us closer together, because sometimes we can't always be together, but when we have the commitments, we know that we can be together. It strengthens my relationship with God because God made a commitment to me, so I should make a commitment to him. And it just makes me feel more connected to him. It is kind of hard to keep your commitment to God, especially while you're in school, but as long as you know that you have the commitment to God, then you're not necessarily trying to evangelize other people. You know what your morals are, and you know what your commitments are to God. And as long as you know that, and you're like, other people can come to you and ask you for advice per se, you can say, I can tell you what the church believes. I can tell you what I believe. But essentially, you're going to make your own decision for this, and I'm not going to think of you any less for the decision you make. The one most important commitment I have made in my life.
Yeah, it sounds kind of hard.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm going to go with my commitment to God because he's very important to me. He kind of put me on the planet. So I kind of owe it to him to, be loving to other people. My commitment to God is to try to be a good disciple of Christ, be a good image of him.
To paraphrase Mother Teresa of Calcutta, God does not call us to be successful. God calls us to be faithful.
If you are a Christian, one commitment to which you are called to be faithful is your commitment to Christ.
It is the most important commitment of your life.
So does this resonate with any of you guys? Where is your commitment to Christ on your list of priorities?
Christ is definitely up on the top of my list of priorities. I spend time with him every Sunday at church, but that's really just, the beginning. He's there with me the entire week. If I need something, I'll sit down and pray with him, have a little chat with him. And, it's good to know that he's so close and that he's also committed to me. I'm committed to him. I say thank you for, putting me here, giving me my health, my family, and all that. But he's also committed to me and helping me out in tough situations and times when I need him. And I think that's a special relationship that, you can only really have with Christ.
And I think that since Christ died for us and all that in the Bible, I think that the least we could do is go to church and pray and just thank Jesus, just at least say thank you and say to Jesus, I appreciate what you've done, what you've given me.
I agree, but I'm not gonna lie, it's not always easy to keep God and your relationship with Christ as the number one commitment in your life. It's easy to go to church every Sunday, at least for me, and to say my prayers at night, but to really keep your commitment with God throughout the day when you're at school and people are doing things that aren't necessarily right, I think that that's the time that it's hardest to keep that commitment with Christ. But like Anthony was saying, he died for us. That's got to be like the greatest commitment when you think about it, and the least we could do is give that back to him.
If he can make that commitment for us, well, the littlest we could do is put him at the top of our commitments. Like every commitment we make, though, there's a cost.
To keep commitments to ourselves and others, we must do more than think and talk about it.
It's easy to say, Jesus, I'm going to be faithful, no matter what.
But the reality is that there are choices to be made every day and all kinds of things vying to become our top priority.
We are constantly faced with giving up one activity in order to do another.
Our commitment to Christ is to keep him first in our lives.
That often means making the difficult decision to step away from things and people that distract us from our relationship to Jesus.
It means not letting other things like popularity, winning championships, or financial success take the place of Jesus in your life.
I think the more commitments you make to God and Christ, the stronger your relationship with him becomes. Because I know I make the commitment to go to church, to pray, to be close to him, to tell him when I feel bad about something and to ask him for forgiveness. And that really brings your relationship, I think, to God closer the more commitments you make to him. Can any of you think of examples where your relationship became stronger because of the commitments you made?
I think with friends, one of the biggest commitments you make is what kinds of things do you find acceptable with each other, and how are you going to stick to that? For example, me and my friends in school are all like, well, we're not going to do drugs. And by not doing drugs, we're also not wasting our time sitting there on the curb smoking or something. We're actually having intelligent conversation or just fun. And instead of wasting brain cells, we're actually enjoying life and enjoying each other. And that's our commitment, to be healthy and to be good for each other.
And by stepping away from those kind of addictive and harmful substances, you're in a sense continuing your commitment with Christ, because those are definitely things he wouldn't want us to become involved in.
I think my commitment to God became stronger after I began to mature a little bit, and I kind of stepped back, and I became more involved in things in the church, and I looked at my religion in a new light. And also I just think that commitments in general, it's just, they usually become stronger when you, if you enjoy that commitment that you make. So
St. Paul reminds us that those who have been given a trust must prove faithful.
And God does not abandon us as we struggle to keep our commitment.
He sends the Holy Spirit to be our helper and our guide.
He strengthens us with grace to live a faithful life.
What are the commitments you make, and where does your commitment to Christ go in your list of priorities? We want to know.
Contact us through our website.
The address is www.realfaithtv.com.
Or you can call us at 609-406-7402.
And remember, God wants us to be known by our faithfulness.
Keeping commitments is one aspect of the faithful life to which each of us is being called.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time on Real Faith TV.
God bless.